Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello, and welcome back to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. My name is John Keir. I'm one of your co-hosts, and joining me, as always, is our other co-host, Austin Davidson.
Heyo.
It's Season 3, Episode 55. The Pittsburgh Steelers' 6-game winning streak has come to an end. They do not extend their winning streak to 7 games by falling to the Denver Broncos in Denver by a final score of 24-17. Really kind of a fascinating game. The Steelers played a lot better overall than they did the previous week against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but there was a key element that remained from that game, and that, of course, was turnovers, and they really sunk the Steelers in this one, Austin. I can't remember the last time there was a game where the turnovers were just so impactful, and not just the turnovers, but the blocked field goal, too. It felt like, just a handful of plays, and if they don't go that way, the Steelers probably win this game.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. The turnovers really killed them, really put the stake in the coffin for them.
And we'll get to recapping the game, of course, but a few bit of news and notes to cover first. The first thing that happened today is that Eli Rogers, you remember a couple last week actually, outside linebacker Ola Adeniyi started practicing, so that 3-week clock started for him, and now for wide receiver Eli Rogers, who most recently played in the AFC Divisional Round loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars, has started practicing just today. So that means the Steelers now have 21 days to activate him to the roster or to put him, I believe you said it was he reverts back to PUP and his season ends. I wouldn't expect them to do that. I think the whole reason of them doing this would be they intend to play him at some point soon. So it looks like we're going to be having a roster move sometime in the very near future. So I know we talked about Adeniyi coming back, but now with Eli Rogers entering the picture too, the Steelers are going to have 2 roster spots up for grabs, and assuming injury is not a factor here, who gets the axe? Which 2 players?
I'm thinking Zach Banner, because one of the most surprises going into this game was Zach Banner was inactive, even with Chukwuma Okorafor starting and Matt Filer being hurt. So that, to me, says that Zach Banner is basically one of the guys they don't need going forward. And not only that, Marcus Gilbert to come back this week, or not come back, at least practice. That is what Mike Tomlin said. So I don't see a reason to hold him around. After that, it's, again, got to be one of the Allens. One of the Allens has got to be on it, whether it be Marcus or Brian. Both of them have been inactive most of the year, so it's one of those 3 guys, in my opinion. What do you think?
I definitely agree with you with the Banner thing. If he wasn't going to play in this game or at least be active, then he never was going to be. If you're going to have an injured Matt Filer as a backup to Okorafor and you're not going to have Banner play, then I don't know what you're keeping him for. It seems like just a matter of time now. As far as the next guy, believe it or not, I actually think there's a chance Justin Hunter gets cut. Now, the only reason I believe that is because Eli Rogers is a receiver and the Steelers would have another receiver in that room. I don't know if it would really benefit them to have another guy in there. I think it's possible Justin Hunter gets the axe here. I could be wrong, of course, but do you think it's a little more likely just because they typically don't keep an extra receiver like that?
It's just hard for me to say that because I just love Justin Hunter. I mean, he's just been hanging around the past few seasons. It's like, I don't know if they'll ever cut him. I mean, maybe. It's definitely a possibility to keep that wide receiver room like the same because it won't add anything. But, like, again, Zach Banner is like, what is he? It's the same thing. He's an extra that the Steelers don't need that's just hanging out there. So, like, I feel like it would be like what is the word I'm looking for? It's like the same. It's a move that it stays the same. It's just the same. That's all I'm going to say. That it's basically moving. It's just changing the position of where you have like an unnecessary amount of people at.
Well, in either case, I suppose we'll learn a lot about where Justin Hunter is if he ends up playing this week, especially with the criticism hurled his way by Ben Roethlisberger, and I guess we'll segue into that. Ben Roethlisberger on his weekly radio show on 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh criticized a bunch of different things, including wide receiver James Washington, Antonio Brown, and the play calling on the final drive. He criticized Washington for really just flat out struggling, and especially on that one particular diving catch where he tried to dive for the football. I'm sure you know the play I'm talking about, where it was kind of unnecessary, where all he had to do was kind of just, run because the ball was kind of hit in stride. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did see that.
So there was that play, and then he criticized Brown for not running his route on the final play a little bit flatter, closer to the line of scrimmage. And then he disagreed with the play calling. He wanted to throw the ball to Juju, he said, on I think it was something like 4 plays down there, and he didn't. So he didn't agree with the play calling there. So some criticism has come his way because Roethlisberger doubled down on his claim, saying that he has the right to criticize his team. Others have pushed back against that, and then there are others who push back on him because he hasn't, quote-unquote, accepted the blame, even though I don't necessarily agree with that because he is critical of himself. But do you agree with what Roethlisberger said, and is the criticism of him, the pushback of him, justified in your mind?
Here's what I agree with. I agree with that he's a captain and a vet, that he has the right to criticize him. I believe it should mostly stay in the locker room, though. I feel like it should be more like, listen, like, I didn't like this going into the game, like, I didn't like this, I don't like this. I feel like criticizing it out on the media and stuff is a bad look. Personally, it doesn't need to go out to the media. I mean, the media asks for it, so it's not exactly his fault. He would basically have to shove away the question, but, I mean, I still think that that's the best thing to do is keep it within the locker room so it doesn't look bad like you're throwing your team under the bus. It's still, like, even what he said wasn't even that bad. Like, he just said, like, what he said about James Washington, like, he wasn't like, oh, my God, this dude sucks. Like, he completely dropped a ball that I put perfectly for him. He's like, he has to have confidence in himself. Like, he wasn't saying, like, yeah, he was bad. He's like, he just needs to have confidence. Like, that's not saying that says Ben knows he's good. Washington wasn't confident in himself, and that's what he said about him. Like, it wasn't that bad. I actually didn't hear the criticism of Antonio Brown. That one I missed today in all the news, or yesterday. But I'm sure that one wasn't as bad either. But when it's said criticism, it always sounds terrible. But I still think overall he should have kept it to the locker room and just been over it with the coaches and his players. Like, hey, like, I want to run it this way, and like, you got to just keep catching it in stride, buddy. Like, stuff like that. What do you think?
I actually completely agree with you, and the one thing that I will kind of differ on is I would be okay. I'd be a little more okay, or not that I'm not okay with it, but I'd feel like it would go over better if Roethlisberger kept the criticism of Brown and the play calling in the locker room, and maybe he decided to take just one opportunity to kind of sort of call out James Washington there in the public eye, just because he's trying to say, look, I know you can be better than what you've shown, kind of. If it's just one thing he's pointing at, I don't think it's as big of a deal. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think that would kind of go over better, because now you have people saying, oh, well, he's criticizing everybody but himself, and he's criticizing the offense, which is, technically, he's the de facto offensive coordinator assistant right now, because it's, it's Randy Fichtner's offense, but it has a lot more of what Ben Roethlisberger wants and specificities now. So, I don't know. And then there's pushback on him criticizing Brown, because it's like, well, he could have run his route flatter, but that wouldn't have changed anything because you still threw the ball to a nose tackle in front of him. But regardless, I think you are right. That kind of stuff typically needs to stay in the locker room. If you're going to make one concerted effort to try to reach somebody out by doing something like that, try to motivate them by doing that, I think it's probably better to do just one of those things. But I think it's probably going to be overblown, as it already has been, and this is something we'll be hearing about for a while. But hey, who knows, maybe this will help James Washington, because as we know, he has not had a good season to this point. I think I told you during the game when he dove for that ball, I actually felt more confident that Sammy Coates would come down with that pass and not James Washington, which is not something I would expect, nor really hope that I would ever say something like that.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, it was wide open. It was just essentially a matter of just catching him stride. The dive is what really threw him off. So, Sammy coach probably could have caught it.
When I first saw it, I thought he did overthrow him, but then the more I saw it, I was like, that jump was just completely unnecessary. But anyways, speaking of unnecessary, there's been a lot of talk about Le'Veon Bell this season. The commented on Instagram post of the Indianapolis Colts and highlighting Andrew Luck and his recent performances with the Colts over the last few weeks. And he commented, just imagine, with those eye-popping emojis. And I know you can imagine this since you saw, I believe you said, book it. He's going to be a Colt next year. So what do you think about Bell maybe being an Indianapolis Colt, and do you think it's going to happen?
Well, now I'm pissed that I took it back in the previous episode where we finally talked about the end of Le'Veon Bell. I'm pissed because I was like, no way that they do it with Marlon Mack now. But I mean, if Bell really wants to go there, if that's where he wants to be, I mean, maybe he'll take less money over there. We'll see. I mean, I could still totally see it. I mean, I think Bell is still a better running back than Marlon Mack. I think when he comes there, he will be better. But I don't know. It just feels like a move that the Colts don't need to make. I think the Colts need to make defensive moves. But could I see it still? Yeah, I could still see it. What about you?
Well, there's definitely interest from one side there, if that's what we're talking about. Bell's clearly interested in going there. Obviously, the real question is, are the Colts interested? I don't think after Bell's died on this hill like this, I don't think he'll accept anything less than what he originally wants anyways. But, I still think the Jets are probably the team, but they both have a lot of cap space. It would not be an informed decision for me to say there's no way he's signing with the Colts, but I think it's a little more likely he signs with the Jets just because of the fact that their running back core hasn't been quite as good, and they aren't doing as well obviously as a team. But I mean, the Colts are definitely a more attractive offer for Le'Veon Bell right now. They've got a more talented offense, and you imagine you want to talk about protecting Andrew Luck. You've done a great job so far. Now, you get a guy who has 400 plus touches every year. That'll help. So obviously we'll have a lot more to talk about before it happens, but that's just something that we wanted to take a look at and talk about real quickly. So just kind of interesting there. Let's check out the injury report from the Steelers game. A few injuries of note. Austin, you want to inform our listeners about what happened?
Sure. Morgan Burnett suffered a back injury, and he didn't end up practicing today, that being Wednesday. Vince McDonald suffered a hip injury, ended up coming in for the game and finishing the game, but did not participate on Wednesday with that same injury. Then Bud Dupree suffered a pec injury and did not practice Wednesday. And Xavier Grimble is in the concussion protocol. So this is probably the game with the most injuries so far this year, which is a good, but not state. Obviously, you won't know it, but I think this is the most injuries we had coming out of the game. So.
Yeah, the Steelers have been quite a lucky team when it comes to injuries coming out of a game, but this is one where it seems like they're quite a bit banged up. So, quite a lot to talk about with this game. Let's get right into it. So, the Steelers start on defense as they have the last couple of games. A quick 3-and-out for the Denver Broncos, and the Steelers get the ball back. They're starting at their own 23, and they go right down the field. I believe it was 8 or 9 straight passes, and they're moving down the field. A few good, nice in-rhythm passing, kind of the opposite of what we saw from Roethlisberger and the receivers last week. And then as soon as they get to the Denver 30-yard line after a 12-yard pass to Jalen Samuels, the Steelers try a trick play. Antonio Brown takes a backwards pass and throws it back across the field for Jalen Samuels, but there's pressure in his face. It falls incomplete. That looked like that could have been a touchdown if he got the ball to him, but obviously he didn't. And 2 plays later, the drive stalled and the Steelers attempted a field goal. Before we get into that field goal, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that opening drive and just the idea of a trick play at that time.
Well, the trick play was interesting. I think the Steelers had a bunch loaded up for this game. Obviously, they had one in the game that was bigger. But regardless, it didn't look very good. It looked like it was a little bit broken. I mean, they must have saw something they wanted to call it, but it didn't end up working. So, I mean, retrospect, now that it didn't work, I wasn't a fan, but I mean, I'm sure if it worked, I would have been going crazy for it. But the Broncos had it sniffed out. It wasn't that great. What did you think about it?
You know, I'm typically not crazy about calling trick plays this early in a game. I think usually they work better when you've been doing something to set something up. But, I mean, I really don't think I'd be boo-hooing at all if they scored a touchdown either, so I can't bash too hard on it. But I don't like the way they turned to it after they had been moving the ball with those short passes, and then I don't know if that got Roethlisberger out of rhythm per se, but obviously the next two throws were incompletions and the drive stalled. So I wasn't crazy about it, but it's not like it's not like it's the worst thing I've ever seen either. So it looks like the Steelers are going to pick up 3 points here and a 48-yard field goal. CBS showed this. Chris Boswell started, I think it was like 1 for 3, 1 for 4, something on field goals at the beginning of the year, and he had since been 7 for 7. And well, he missed one, but this one was not on him. I forgot his name. What was it? Simmons. Simmons was his name. He jumps over the line, kind of the Troy Polamalu play, and blocks the field goal. That was kind of a crazy play. I thought it was going to be a flag, but I guess because he didn't put any body weight down on the long snapper, it wasn't a flag. And the Broncos blocked their 4th punt/kick of the year. Kind of crazy.
Yeah, the Broncos were very good at that coming in. Obviously, they showed it on TV, showing them all of the passes they had just recently. Steelers really should have been prepared. Cameron Kennedy should have to be like, yes, is going to try and jump you. And also, he tried to get a little bit higher. I guess he didn't see it, but, I mean, I don't know how you don't see it. Like, once he saw Simmons leaping over him, if I'm that happening over me, I'm standing up. I'm trying to get him to put his on me so they draw a penalty instead. I believe if they get that penalty, it keeps the drive alive. It brings offense back on the field if I remember correctly. It's automatic first down, but regardless, I wasn't very happy about it. I wasn't happy about him being ready for such a when Simmons has done it himself now twice in the past 3 times actually in the past 2 seasons. So like you kind of wish that they were a little bit more prepared coming in for something like that.
Yeah, I think this really falls on Danny Smith and the special teams unit there. Just really something. It's not even like you have to dig deep to find it on tape. All they showed was the replays, and we saw it right there. They've done it before, this year, in fact. And I know you don't get a ton of time with special teams, but the fact that Danny Smith, again, did not have his unit prepared for something like this just screams incompetence to me. And I've about had it with Danny Smith and things like this where his unit's just not ready for things that really they should know about. And I get maybe the new kickoff rules, that's a little difficult to kind of explain to players who haven't played special teams before. Okay, I'll give you a pass one time, but this is repeated negligence of duty here, and I'm really sick of it. And I'm not saying he necessarily needs to get fired, but there needs to be more accountability here because this kind of stuff can't happen. And the Broncos take the ball after this, and they start moving the ball a little bit. They eventually do work their way down the field. The key play, a 29-yard pass play to Jeff Hireman. He had a big day, at least early on. On that 29-yard pass play, it was really John Bostic who gave up that big play. I watched it several times. He looked like he was running towards Hireman laterally, kind of expecting him to run an out or a curl route, but he ran a wheel route, and Bostic just, he turned around too late, and by the time he was on his horse, Keenum had already hit Hireman in stride, and that big 29-yard play was the difference there, setting up the Broncos' first 3 points. That was really the big key play from that drive that I remember.
Yeah, the Broncos came out seeing what happened the first drive, and they came out throwing because obviously that first drive, Philip Lindsay ran for 2 yards and then 3 yards respectively. The one time that the Broncos ran on that entire drive, it only went for 2 yards. So it was really unfortunate to give up that big play. But I mean, because of the blocked kick, they had a pretty short field to navigate. So that was just a killer. That was obviously gave it, but it was good for them to not completely break on the field that they had to cover. Really, that 29-yard play, you can't highlight it enough. Hireman getting those 29 yards was just too much. Can't give up that kind of play. But I mean, at least they only got a field goal off of it.
So the Steelers get the ball back, and they start moving a few plays to Ryan Switzer. They're moving down the field, a good 3rd and 1 conversion to Juju Smith-Schuster. He had a great game. Obviously, we'll get into that a little bit. And here we go. This is the drive where Xavier Grimble fumbles. So the Steelers end the first quarter with a run by James Conner for 3 yards, and they get the ball the Denver 24-yard line. So this play call, they line up in a 3 tight end set with 1 receiver out to the side and a single back formation. They fake the run to the tackle side, the strong side on the tackle with Conner, and Roethlisberger sells it well, and Grimble's on the far end. He's the far tight end on that side. He kind of leaks out, and I don't know if you remember, Austin, but they ran this exact same play against the New England Patriots in the exact part of the field, in the exact same situation, a 3rd and 1, to Grimble, and Grimble caught the pass last year and converted the 3rd down. This time he caught it. There was nobody by him. I'm going to ask you if you remember that play first, and then obviously we can get into what happened after. But I thought it was a terrific play call.
Oh yeah, I 100% remember that play. I also agree. I thought it was a terrific play call.
And then Grimble catches the ball at about right around probably around the 15-yard line, give or take. And it looks like he's going to score because it's like there's nobody near him. There's only 2 defenders out that way. There's the guy who's in coverage with the receiver, and I think it's Brown. And I think Brown's holding him up. So it's really just him and the safety one-on-one. And Grimble's gotten a lot of blowback because he tried to take him head-on, which was kind of dumb, honestly, as far as the way he did it. I don't have as much of a problem with him not quote-unquote cutting it back because he's a slow tight end and you're dealing with the safety here. I think the safety would have not necessarily been fooled here, but regardless, my big problem with Xavier Grimble is the fact that he broke the number 1 rule of a ball carrier, and that's carrying the football in the offside arm. So you carry the ball, if you're running to the right sideline and there's a defender to your left, you don't carry the ball in your left hand, you carry it in your right hand. Because the idea is when you're tackling somebody, you're always taught to tackle the football with your helmet. You're supposed to put your helmet on the football and jar it loose. And that's not exactly what happened here, but Grimble led kind of with his right arm going towards his left, and the defender was right there. He didn't extend his elbow and arm out, but he initiated contact with it. And when you do that, you're taking the brunt of the force on the football, and obviously, it might not have seemed that obvious when it first happened, but when you look back on it, it's not really that surprising that he fumbled when that happened.
Really isn't. That is a big deal, like you said. Like, if he had the ball in his other hand, that's a touchdown. Stand behind that play calling. I know a lot of people are like, why is the 3rd string tight end out there? If you have Vance McDonald or Jesse James out on that side, why it's not that open? It's as simple as that. Xavier Grimble's out there, but to basically sell that the Steelers are to the right, because first of all, why would you run to the left with your string tight in there when Vance McDonald is probably your best run blocker? So it's almost not even considered that they're passing. It's just thinking like, okay, they're running heavy to the right. And it's a great play call because no one thinks Xavier Grimble is going to go out there on the route. Again, though, not moving the ball over was a big thing for him, and it's unfortunate. It's also the rule in NFL football, if I have to say so. Why is a fumble out of the end zone go to the other team? If he fumbled a half a yard before, it would have been the Steelers on the half-yard line. Why is it because he fumbled out of the end zone, right there? Like he basically was in. He fumbled inches before the end zone, which I agree with. He definitely did. I feel like it's just a stupid rule. I feel like it's terrible. It's one of the worst ones in NFL, if I have to say so myself. But also on that drive, I just wanted to say that the Steelers were getting a lot of flack after the game for not running a lot. And I want to point out to a lot of those people that this drive is, I think, where you could see why they started doing that a lot. Because I saw a lot of the coaches getting flack for why did you give up on the run when they're the 27th worst rush defense. I also want to say something else. The ranked the 27th worst ranked rush defense because they gave up like 300 yards to the Jets. So that's a little bit skewed because they gave up so many yards in one game. But regardless, their pass defense has been trashed. They were 18th coming in. And on this drive, Connor had runs of 2, 3, 6, and 3. And then while Roethlisberger was still hot, going 5 for 6 on this drive with passes of 13, 9, 3, 6, and then 23 on Grimble's fumble. So this was the beginning. I'm gonna harp on this almost on every drive, that this was the beginning of why the Steelers passed so much, because of it was working better. You attack what's working better, and at this point, it completely was. I mean, obviously, Ben was 5 for 6, and it only gets better for the pass later on when you see the stats for that. So I just wanted to add that in.
I forgot. I had a point that I wanted to make as far as the whole Grimble play. I cannot put my finger.
Do you want to talk about the actual rule?
Yeah, that's
like I did, or
that's what it was. I just a question, I guess. What do you think the rule should be instead if a player does that?
It should punish them, I think, because it's still a fumble, but it was recovered by the opposing team. I would think it would be even better if you just moved it back to the 10-yard line. You don't have to move back to the 1-yard line, which, I mean, ultimately it really should, because that's where you fumbled. But just punish the team for fumbling out of bounds in the first place, and make the team start from the 10, or I guess maybe even the 5. I would say 10 to be safe, because you could fumble from like 6 yards out, and it just happens to roll yards because you got hit hard or something. I don't know. I would say that would be the best. I mean, if I was really in control, I would do the spot of the foul. Sorry, not the spot of the foul. The spot of the fumble is to get the ball back if it rolled out of the back of the end zone. But, yeah. What would you do?
I was just wondering, what about if they treat it like a touchback, so like they move it to the 20, but they give it back to whoever last touched it.
Okay. All right. So, no, yeah, actually that is pretty good, because I mean if the safety, if Parks there was actually touched the ball, maybe the Broncos should get the ball at around the 20 at that time. But if Xavier Grimble just fumbled out of bounds, it was just like any other fumble, the Steelers should get it at the 20. I like that. I can respect that. It punishes the team for fumbling, and it gives the defense a chance to still take it. I like that.
I literally just thought of that on the spot. My original thought was just put the ball at the 20-yard line, and then I was thinking, well, what if it's like an 80-yard pass and he fumbles, kind of like what Deshaun Jackson did, where like he threw the ball before he crossed the plane, but say it takes a weird bounce and it bounces out of the end zone. I don't know, but I feel like that could be interesting. I'm sure there's something that I missed that could be of vital importance to it. But it's a fascinating rule, and when it works against you like it did in this game, it can be really frustrating. But I do hope it's something that the competition committee at least visits, and we can at least have a discussion about it, because it's one of those weird, obscure rules about football that just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. But I digress. So where were we? Oh yeah, so that fumble was really I really felt like that fumble. I mean, I guess all the turnovers were bad in their own right, but I really felt like this one hurt the most, just from the standpoint of how close it was to a touchdown. I know the Steelers were, 2 yards away when Roethlisberger threw the game-ending pick, but I really felt like this one almost hurt more than the rest.
This was guaranteed 7. This one, that's why it hurt so much. This was guaranteed 7. James Connors wasn't guaranteed to lead to any points. The pass in the end zone had to be a touchdown, or the Steelers lose, because they had to force overtime. So it's not even like they could kick a field goal. And then the blocked field goal is just a blocked field goal. Like, what can you do? This one was directly 7 points. Like, it was right there, and then it was just taken away and went from 7 to 0 real quick.
Yeah, it was definitely a burner. And on this next drive for the Denver Broncos, they get a few nice plays. I noticed I typed down a lot of notes regarding whenever the Steelers got pressure but couldn't finish. I felt like that happened a lot in this game. There were four different instances I had pressure charted, and only one of them resulted. Actually, wait, none of them resulted in a sack. I had one, a 14-yard pass to Cortland Sutton, where pressure by Hayward and Chickalo, they couldn't finish the play. Pressure by Vince Williams on the next play, he still completes it to Sanders. Several plays later, Vince Williams can't finish it. There's offensive pass interference, and then this was when Emmanuel Sanders toasted Joe Hayden the first time. The pass was incomplete. And then more good pressure from Hargrave and Hayward, this time an incomplete pass, but no sack on the play. I really felt like that was a theme for the defensive pass rush most of the day.
Yeah, I agree. There was a lot of pressure, but not a lot of turning it into anything. Mostly just, like you said, just pressure, just not being able to convert. But it was good, though. The defense was forcing Case Keenum to throw, which is exactly what they wanted. The only rush on the series that they had went for 0 yards, and then the drive finished with 3 straight incompletions from Case Keenum, which was exactly what the Steelers wanted to do. Obviously, the Broncos' rushing attack was what the Steelers were probably most worried coming in. So at this time, the defense was doing exactly what they needed to do, shutting down making Case Keenum throw, and it wasn't working. Exactly going in the Steelers. Besides like a few big catches, obviously. It started with a 14-yard pass to Cortland Sutton. Then the very next play, Sanders for 11 yards. But after that, it was just nothing. It was better to have Case Keenum throw at Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman rush. That's what I'm trying to say.
So the Steelers get the ball back, and they're moving the ball down the field. They get a face mask penalty in their favor. And then there's a questionable offensive pass interference call, in my mind, on Vance McDonald after a completion to Ryan Switzer to the Denver 18-yard line. And that stalls that drive. The Steelers settle for a field goal. And I think it's a soft call. And I know the Steelers have kind of gotten the benefit of the doubt when it comes to penalties the last couple weeks, but this was kind of egregious in my mind.
I honestly don't really remember it. I must have not been looking out for that one, but still, I bet you're probably right on it. But I wanted to continue with what I set up for the last offensive drive is to stand by the decision to keep passing this game. On this drive, Ben 8 for 8, so why would anyone stop throwing when they can't stop it? Yeah, Connor had a 6-yard gain, but up this actual. But Ben was getting 6 yards consistently from throwing it, so I just wanted to echo that point again. He was 8 for 8, and he got 2 yards, but that was the lowest one he had. He had an 11-yard. I still stand by the decision of throwing it. And Boswell hit another 40 field goal. It's always good to see. It's always see him bounce back. I wish he got to actually kick that 48-yard one. That 48-yard would have been nice because on that sheet, unfortunately, again, Simmons jumped over the pile. Good block by him.
The Broncos take the ball on the ensuing possession, and they go right down the field. It starts with a bizarre offsides penalty on Mike Hilton, who rarely mistimes one of his blitzes, and then Philip Lindsay goes off the right guard for 32 yards. We've seen this play on Twitter the last couple days. The spacing is not good. Vince Williams does a poor job of filling the hole. Lindsay's off and running, and Sean Davis makes a poor angle there, and he's lucky he's not gone, and that just changed the drive right there. Do you have any thoughts on that play?
Yeah, I wanted to say if it weren't for Edmonds there, Lindsay would have had a touch. He still got those 32 yards, which isn't good, but it's just this is the drive the run defense really broke down. This was the beginning of where where Philip Lindsay started to actually come out and do good after the defense had 3 straight drives of holding the Broncos and no rushing, but it was bound to break out eventually with Phil and Royce Freeman being their running backs.
And things got worse for the defense before they got better. At the Steelers' 27-yard line, there were back-to-back miscommunications, it seemed. A 17-yard play-action fake, pump fake bubble screen and then the pass up the seam to the inside guy. We've seen the Steelers run that play a lot before, but there's only 2 Steelers out there for 3 Denver players. So that leaves Edmonds, who there's 2 guys running up the seam, or 2 guys running verticals. There's 1 guy up the seam, 1 guy on the outside. Hayden takes the guy on the outside. The guy on the seam is a Lacoste, and Edmonds is originally on him, but then he bolts for the guy in the bubble, leaving Hayden to try to cover both of them. Lacoste is wide open. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if you saw that play, what you got to analyze with it, but someone wasn't doing the right thing there. And then the second play, right after that, another breakdown. Edmonds runs for the guy in the breaking out of the backfield, and Lacoste is wide open running a curl in the middle of the field. He catches it, and he's able to get into the end zone. Just, I don't know what happened, but something bad.
Yeah, I think on a touchdown play, I think Cody Sensabaugh messed up. I mean, that's just a guess because he was the closest guy. Still, if there was a 12 on Lacoste, that was a total mismatch. I don't think Cody Sensabaugh was going to stop it, even if he was in the right position, to be honest with you. So that's thoughts on that.
So the Broncos go up 10-3, and we see some more fantastic throws from Ben Roethlisberger, a couple big ones to Ryan Switzer to get the Steelers down into scoring position. Now we're getting close to the end of the half, so they move the ball well here to get into position, but the drive again stalls. First and goal from the Denver 7-yard line with 51 seconds left. I didn't like that the Steelers didn't run the ball at all in the goal-to-go situation. The first pass to Switzer got them to the 2-yard line, so that's okay. But then they throw another pass, and this one was really upsetting because it went right off of McDonald's hands. He was right there, and it was an egregious drop. And then the shovel pass, which I banged on last week, I thought they were calling it too often. The Jaguars were almost able to stop it, and the Steelers were lucky that Roethlisberger extended just far enough. This time they run it again to the other side, and the Broncos stop it for no gain, and the Steelers have to settle for a field goal, and we'll get into that play in a moment. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on that drive and the sequence leading up to the field goal attempt.
Oh, yeah. Ben went in 10 with gains of 15, 24, 9 again, and 6, while Connor rushed once for 2 on that play. So if everyone's not sold on why the Steelers didn't rush as much in this game, I don't know what else to tell you, because at this point you should be sold on why the pass was being heavily used compared to the rush, because it wasn't working. In the beginning, the rush was not working. Regardless, the shovel pass, you worked on it last week, and I totally agree. Using it in back-to-back weeks, that's a rough one. That probably shouldn't have happened. They just flipped it around. It's just, I like it. I still like the play call, just not used back-to-back weeks. You got to put at least a little bit of separation in there. Just not a fan of that call. And it led to them having to kick a field goal, or so we thought.
Yeah, exactly. The Broncos, luckily, were not ready for the Steelers to run a fake here. Despite the fact that Alejandro Villanueva had to report to the officials, so the officials had to inform the defense that he was an eligible receiver. That should have tipped them off right there, but it doesn't. By the way, I want to give big props to Cameron Canaday. That's a tough snap directly to the kicker like that, and a perfectly designed and executed play. Villanueva was wide open, sneaking out like that, and Boswell with a nice throw on the run right in stride, so that was just a beautiful play. And it doesn't undo a lot of the bad things that happen on special teams in this game, but that was a very nice play. I must tip my cap to them.
Yeah, that Boswell touchdown was just a thing of you loved it, especially when your lineman was a former tight end when he was in the NFL. Still, it was just a great play call. I feel like I wish we saw that more often because, obviously, Villanueva wasn't tight end all the way up to his 10 with the Eagles. So, he still has hands somewhat. So, now you really can't run it for much more because you just shut it off really late in the season. But still, great play call.
I don't think I need to see a fake field goal again for a while. The last time the Steelers did that, they had Landry Jones as the holder, and Villanueva ran out for a route against the Seahawks, and it got picked off and run back like 70 yards, and they almost scored a touchdown on that play. So I'm okay with them doing it every now and then, but this one worked a lot better. So the Steelers go into halftime tied. They get the ball back. In the first play, Roethlisberger just a bit far for Juju Smith-Schuster. That would have been a touchdown. I originally blamed Ben mostly for it, but I wanted to make note that Okorafor gave up some pressure there at the end of the play that could have influenced a little bit of a pass that was overthrown by just a touch.
Yeah, it was really just a shame. It was close to. I was so close to my prediction. Right, you got one of your predictions. The Steelers 2 50-yard touchdowns in this game, and if I'm connected, I would have been right. It was just unfortunate.
So the Steelers are moving the ball again. They get to a 3rd and 9 at the Steelers' 26-yard line. Actually, they didn't move the ball. I should clarify. They went 3 and out. That was a disappointing drive after an illegal contact penalty by James Washington. A 3rd and 9, the Steelers ran a quick inside screen to Antonio Brown. I wasn't a fan of that. I don't get throwing short of the sticks like that on 3rd down.
No, it's too long to throw up like that. 3rd and 9, you want to throw that short? It's just not good. I mean, it was a bad drop together. James Washington had to that day by taking away corner 5 rush that they had. It's come out 3 and out, but very solid 50-yard punt following it. But,
yeah, it was a nice punt, and the Broncos got the ball back around their own 27-yard line. Yeah, I wasn't really sure quite how things were going to go at this point, considering the fact that the Steelers apparently had all the momentum, and then they lost it. Or so it seemed. But the first play, Phillip Lindsay goes off the left end for 14 yards, and then right away, the very next play, Vince Williams comes up with the Steelers' first sack of the game, bringing down Case Keenum in the backfield. I really thought that was a fantastic effort by Vince Williams. At first, I thought it was a blown assignment by the Denver Broncos offensive lineman, but upon further inspection, it was really just a fantastic play by Williams with the swim move past the guard. Did you get a chance to see that play?
It was, yeah, I actually did. It was just kind of weird coming out the half of the defense because they all sort of flipped how they were doing. They're all against the pass, but looked at it coming out of the half. Obviously, they got that sack that you're talking about with Vince Williams, and obviously that was what we're kind of hoping for. The interior of their line was pretty weak coming in. They just lost their backup center for the year after Matt Paradis went down. So we were kind of hoping some pressure come from up there, and it worked out. It was a great play by Williams.
So that helps to stall the drive. The Steelers get the ball back, but they're at their own 3-yard line. And it looks like it's going to be another tough drive here. But first play, Roethlisberger steps back in his own end zone. Pouncey gets blown up, and Roethlisberger lets it go. And you're thinking the worst thing. You're thinking this is going to be an interception. Maybe they run it back. But no, it's right in stride to Juju Smith-Schuster. He runs down the middle of the field, cuts to the left sideline after starting out on the right side, and he stiff arms a defender on the way into the end zone. Antonio Brown throws a block. And deja vu, just like last year, he goes 97 yards to the house, and that was I honestly think when we look back after Ben Roethlisberger retires, I think this is going to be thought of as one of his best throws ever. Backed up into your end zone, Pouncey getting steamrolled, and you deliver a strike like that off your back foot is just sensational in my mind. And obviously, fantastic effort from Smith-Schuster and Brown to get the work done down the field to take it into the end zone. Just all around a fantastic play.
Oh, yeah, that was so great. My fears were almost met because I thought a safety was about to happen. Ben was obviously being hit as he threw, but that throw and the touchdown were amazing. There's just good things from both sides because Juju doesn't have breakaway speed. Juju doesn't have that Mike Wallace speed, that top-end semi-coach speed. But you know what he does have? He does have strength. He has strength, and he used that to his abilities. He has pretty good moves. He obviously cut through the defenders to get to the left sideline and used his stiff arm to take out 2 guys with one stiff arm. So he makes the most out of his stuff. And obviously he tied himself for the longest pass play in Steelers history. It was just a really good play. And like you said, this might go down as one of Ben's best throws because obviously he had a guy right in his face while he was throwing. And just great, amazing play that caught in stride by Juju.
So the Steelers force the 3-and-out, and they get the ball back, and they're starting to move the ball. They're at midfield again, and then right when you think they're going to score again, and it's going to be game, set, and match, Roethlisberger is intercepted by Chris Harris. He kind of floats the ball a bit. Antonio Brown was held a bit on this play, but I just felt like it was a bad throw.
The 3-and-out was so good, and then almost came back because Ryan Switzer technically muffed the punt coming in, but still, regardless, that interception was bad. Ben thought it was a hold, which makes it slightly better for him because he threw it because he thought he was going to get the call, but he threw it way too high, and it wasn't a hold. He thought it was a hold when he was throwing it, but it definitely wasn't after seeing the play. Very minimal what happened on the tape, so just a bad interception to take there. And obviously, but good on Chukwuma to get the tackle, bring down Chris Harris after his 15-yard return.
Indeed, but bad did go from bad to worse. The next play, Case Keenum finds Emmanuel Sanders down the right sideline, who again toasted Joe Hayden. He had a bad day, Joe Hayden. One of the weird, odd times where he didn't have a good game.
Yeah, I agree. He just, for some reason, Emmanuel Sanders is just beating him bad. It's just he's gone up against faster guys too, but like this was just, it seemed had separation a few times in this game. It doesn't happen defending a short field to give up 90% of the yards needed to get to the end zone on one play. And then obviously that Emmanuel touchdown was very, very weird. I don't know if you got a chance to look at it. Maybe you could help me because you're a little bit better with like seeing what the plays are. Back, and I think the blame is on John Bostic. I'm not exactly sure, but I still don't understand it. I think they were in man. And it's just Edmonds was in the area, and if they were in man, Edmonds was on his guy. Edmonds had his guy, and he was covering the guy in the back of the end zone. But if they were in zone, Edmonds would have had to cover two guys, and that means someone wasn't there. And Bostic was like, I think Vince Williams and Bostic got confused because both of them were looking at the quarter. Both of them literally ended up pass rushing the back, which left Emmanuel Sanders open there. It's either Vince Williams or John Bostic to blame because Vince Williams was lined up on Emmanuel Sanders to begin with, but like he didn't look like he was ever going out to be covered. It looked like he was supposed to be like a quarterback spy or a delayed pass rush. Bostic, I think, was supposed to drop back a little bit, but I don't know. What say you about that? Emmanuel Sanders touchdown, because I was a little confused. I think the blame is on there's a communication somewhere. Someone's supposed to drop back to that spot because it left way too much open space.
No, that's good analysis, Austin. I didn't come to the conclusion of Bostic, but the conclusion I came to was that there were too many guys chasing the quarterback. You had four guys going after the quarterback when Keenum lets go of that football, and they need to worry a little bit about the guys behind them. You have one of the linemen, I think it's Hargrave, you have Watt out there, and you have Bostic and Williams. And I didn't get a good look at Bostic, but I know that the last person that was close to Emmanuel Sanders before he caught that touchdown was Vince Williams. So you are right. It's probably one of those guys. As to which one, I don't have that answer for you. But from what it seems to me, it's one of those guys. So if that's who you want to point the finger at, I would understand completely and implicitly. I would agree with you as well. So that frustrating sequence of events led to a tie game, and then the Steelers get the ball back. The Tony toe tap play, Ben Roethlisberger to Antonio Brown. Brown gets the feet down, and 2 plays later, Brown hurls a deep ball to down the right sideline for James Washington, who dives and doesn't come up with the ball. He dives somewhat unnecessarily, considering it looked like the ball was going to hit him in stride, and he drops the ball when he hits the turf. And I at first I thought Roethlisberger overthrew him, but the more and more I look at it, he didn't need to jump, and that probably cost him a big gain, maybe a touchdown.
See, when I first saw that, I was a little confused because what I thought happened was, based on the first angle they showed you, I thought because of the catch rule, that was just a catch and he touched out of bounds, and then I realized, no, it was just an incomplete pass. But then what later John pointed out to me, it was actually out of bounds. It was ruled caught out of bounds. And if that's the case, because that's what I thought. At first I thought because of the catch rule that was a catch that it was jarred out by the ground because his elbow hit, and that's what forced the ball out. But it's very interesting. The ref ruled it a catch out of bounds because they could have challenged that if that's really what the ref thought, because he wasn't out of bounds when he technically caught it. The ball bounced out right when his elbow hit side, and he had more body parts inside before he touched out of bounds. So that was just something interesting. But still, even if that's the case, even if Washington gets the catch because of the catch rule, it's just not. It's not a good play by him. That should be a touchdown. 90% of the time, that should be a touchdown because he had it placed basically right for where he could catch it, right where he could take it and run straight forward while he had beat both his guys easily, and just it should have been a touchdown. So even if he caught that and it just on the dive and he ended up over there, I would still be criticizing him right now because that ball was put exactly where he could have caught to run straight to the end zone and just get a touchdown. And again, that ruined my bold prediction of 250-yard touchdown game because that was an easy one. That one, there was no one even close to him. He was gone.
And that stalls out the Steelers' drive. They take a timeout after that play, their second of the half, which I know it was a big third and 8, but I was not happy about that, and I feel like it cost the Steelers later in the game. But they end up punting, and Sanders nearly burns Morgan Burnett later on the drive, but the Steelers are lucky, and the Broncos punt, and Switzer muffs the punt again, his second muff punt of the game. Somehow he miraculously comes back with it. I don't know how that happened, but he gets it back, and the Steelers start moving the ball again. Same thing we've been talking about all game. They get into the Denver side of the field. Shaquille Barrett comes up with the sack, so it's 2nd and 16 from the 46. An innocent-looking screen pass to James Conner, and all of a sudden, boom, it's a big play. James Conner's off and running, and you're thinking, oh boy, can he score here? And before you know it, he loses the football, and the Broncos recover. A very innocent-looking play. He doesn't even get hit where Grimble got hit with the helmet on the ball. Bradley Roby was nowhere near James Conner's where James Conner was holding the football. He hit him in the legs, and Conner, the kind of the force caused him to slam the ball into himself almost, and he lost he almost threw it. And that was just a very bizarre play, and I don't know how you fumble the ball in that situation, but it's bad. That's the second time James Conner has fumbled in a crucial situation like that. The first time, obviously, was in Week 1 against the Browns. This one was the final play of the third quarter, and it was a horrible fumble.
I couldn't agree with you more. The fumble was bad. But what put the Steelers in great position ended with Conner basically dropping the ball. He got hit in the legs. He needs to hold that ball better. Literally, perfectly, he basically hit himself because of the momentum from Roby hitting his legs. That should have been a big explosive play that set up the Steelers for at least a field goal. It's just fortunate that it ended that way, that he basically threw it up in the air backwards and the Broncos recovered. Just this was the worst one for me. Out of the 3 bad plays, the blocked field goal, the Xavier Grimble fumble, and then this one was just bad because it didn't seem like it was that hard to hold onto the ball there. It wasn't getting hit in the legs. At least, like you said, Grimble could say yeah, I got hit where the ball was. It's just the ball was on the right side for Conner. He had it away from the defender and just still managed to cough it up. It was unfortunate.
Yeah, it was honestly really bad. And I think it's fair to say that the one thing we can unequivocally say about Le'Veon Bell that has been better than James Conner is the fact that Conner has fumbled 4 times in less than 300 touches this year. Bell has 4 fumbles in his last 900 touches?
Oh yeah, something crazy like that.
So I don't know how you fix it. I think you do the old Tom Coughlin, Tiki Barber routine where you make Conner hold the football walking around. I don't know if you heard about this, but Tiki Barber used to have a fumbling problem. Tom Coughlin, gave him a football and made him hold it whenever he was in the facility for a week. And if anyone punched it out, I think it was something like his teammates would always try to punch the ball out. If they punched the ball out, like I forget, it was some sort of like incentive, like the coach would buy them dinner or something like that. So like every time someone punched the ball out when he was at the facility, they would get dinner, courtesy of the coaches. So I don't know if that's something Mike Tomlin should consider, but it helped Tiki Barber. Maybe it could help James Conner.
Maybe. I mean, it's always silly. Anything that can help him hold on to the ball. Maybe it's something that might not even be able to be fixed this year. Maybe this is an off-season thing that needs to happen. I mean, you kind of hope for it to happen this year. Like, he put in a lot of work to get where he is this year, so it's likely not going to be addressed until this off-season at least.
Indeed. So the Broncos get the ball, and of course this is the inopportune time for it to happen. Points off of turnovers. This is when the Steelers' defense just really struggled against the run. Phillip Lindsay goes to, I believe, 99 total rushing yards on this drive. Just not necessarily gashing the Steelers with the exception of one 18-yard run, but it culminates in a 2-yard touchdown for Phillip Lindsay, and now there's only 9 minutes left. Just a drive where the defense gets worn down, and again, you were looking for a play for the defense, and they didn't come up with one.
Yeah, something interesting I wanted to note off that defense drive. 5 of Edmonds' 9 tackles in this game came on this drive alone, which is sort of interesting to me. It just kind of showed to me how tired the defensive line and the linebackers were that Terrell Edmonds could down to basically stop pass every single time. It's just there's too many plays at 10-plus yards on this. You got Emmanuel Sanders for 15. You got Jeff Hine for 15. You got Deshaun Hamilton for 13. Just way too many big chunk plays that let them get down to the field where Phillip Lindsay could rush for a 2-yard touchdown. The defense is getting tired. That's basically what it is.
So the Steelers now get the ball back with a deficit now, 24-17 with just over 9 minutes to go. The drive stalls at midfield again, and the Steelers have to punt. And this drive was a big one for the defense. Lindsey does go over 100 yards. He does pick up 8 yards on first down, but the Steelers are bailed out with the penalty. And on 3rd and 4, Case Keenum sacked by Javon Hargrave and Cameron Hayward. That was a big boy sack for both of them. They both got credited with the half sack. And at first I thought it was just Hargrave, but Cam Hayward literally threw the offensive lineman into Case Keenum. That was a huge sack, and it gave the Steelers one more chance.
Oh, yeah, that sack was huge. But on the offensive route leading up to it, with the caliber of receiver AB is and being literally named Tony Totab, I really wanted him to come down with that incompletion happen on that try because he would have had it. He just didn't realize where his I think it was his left foot at the time was because he had that caught. It's just a shame that just barely got that left foot out of bounds because he's obviously known for his catches on the sidelines being Tony Totab, but that one just was he wasn't as aware. But back to the defense though. The illegal formation penalty on the Denver definitely helped, but they stood tall. Good. He gave the Steelers at least one last chance to tie it up, force overtime with like 6 minutes to go, about 5 minutes, 30 seconds around. Actually 5 minutes. I was looking at the wrong time. But yeah.
So the drive starts at the 44, and immediately Von Miller sacks Ben Roethlisberger. Thought he might have been offsides, but upon further inspection, I don't think that he was. That's just what makes Von Miller a great player. And then the Steelers, you're thinking it's bad, but then they get all 16 yards back and then some. Juju Smith-Schuster for 19. Just a great all-around play there. And then a couple plays later, a 3rd and 6, a 19-yard throw to Smith-Schuster. A perfect read by Roethlisberger. The corner bailed to cover for the safety, and Roethlisberger dropped it in over the top for him. They get into the red zone. Roethlisberger scrambles to the 3-yard line. And you're thinking, oh boy, here we go. It's going to be just like last week. The Steelers are going to be able to get this one done. They line up on 1st and goal at the 3 and decide to spread it out for some reason. And they don't run the ball. They throw a fade to Smith-Schuster, and it's incomplete. And then they run the ball against a stacked defensive front from the shotgun. So I don't know why they're running from the shotgun and that against that formation, but they do. And I didn't like the sequence of events leading up to that final play. But I guess let's talk a little bit about that drive before the final play, because I'm sure there were things you wanted to clarify, talk about.
Yeah, the first one I talked about was Ben couldn't hide Vaughn all day. There's no way a player of Vaughn's caliber was not going to come away with the sack in this one, even with the Steelers offensive line playing so well. But with 4 minutes to play and down by 7, that was bad for it to happen. But honestly, really all I had to say about the drive leading up to it was just Von Miller couldn't stay for the entire day. That was never happening.
All right, so on the final play, we already know what happens. Roethlisberger is intercepted by the defensive tackle. Flashbacks to the Patriots game from last year, and it's like, well, there's so much to say, but first of all, this whole play is a mess. The first thing you notice is it's a bad snap, which ruins the timing of the play. Second, Chukwuma Okorafor is pulling from the right side to block an open guy on the left. He recognizes it late. The pass rusher is too far upfield. Roethlisberger decides to keep it, and he's already immediately under pressure. Roethlisberger has to get rid of it basically immediately. And then third, I don't know if you know like what the RPO is, but basically the run pass option is you either hand it off or you throw it to a guy that's wide open, not wide open, but you throw it to the first option. There is no other option. So what that means is that Juju Smith-Schuster and James Washington are useless on this play, and they might as well be on the bench. They serve no purpose other than to be a decoy. And then finally, Ben Roethlisberger can either hand it off, which means giving it to a crowded front with the guy in the backfield already. So, all right, that's probably the right choice. And now he can either throw it to a double-covered Antonio Brown, or he can throw it out of the back of the end zone. And he made the wrong choice. It was terrible. Just a horrible decision, just like the New England game last year. And one thing I really didn't get about Roethlisberger's criticism of Brown not running the route flatter is that it wouldn't have mattered because Roethlisberger was intercepted by a defensive tackle who was in front of Brown in the first place. So it doesn't matter if Brown didn't run necessarily the precise route there, he still would have been picked off. So that was just, nothing about that play. That play should not have been called. That was a horrible play call. And the execution of it was terrible too. Just all around awful, and that's what you get.
Yeah, that play call was just bad. Even if Shelby Harris was gone, maybe pushed down, maybe it was fell on or something stupid. That ball was being intercepted by Roby, I believe, who was in coverage because Antonio Brown was super covered. And I'm echo what you said about that being an interception, even if Antonio Brown ran a sharper closer to the line of scrimmage, just was never going to work. It was that was going to be an interception to Shelby Harris, unless maybe he unloaded it like half a second faster, where he was more to the left side of the field. That's the only thing I could think of where he would have been underneath Bradley Roby, and then Shelby Harris wouldn't have been there. But from what I remember of the play, I would have to go back and now I believe there was someone right there as well, the other side of Shelby Harris that was backed up in coverage. So I don't think it would have mattered regardless. It's just super bad play call. They either thrown it out of the back end zone and just lived one more down because it wasn't going to work, or that should have been a handoff. That's, I think. I mean, there was a minute left on the clock at that point. Why not run it? Don't get shot. You ran off 30 seconds off the clock. Maybe if you get the touchdown, it just takes more time away from it takes more time away from the Broncos if the Steelers get the touchdown. So I just think it was just a complete bad call. I don't know why they're throwing there. It didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it was just all around horrible, and then the Broncos get the ball, and it's over. The Steelers had wasted 2 of their timeouts earlier, and that's where it really comes back to bite you. They could have gotten a chance to get the ball back, but nope. They used those timeouts, and the game was over, and the Steelers' winning streak evaporated, and just really a frustrating game the Steelers let slip away from them, and the players knew it afterwards. So, I mean, I guess just one of those games where it's, that they can't win, they aren't going to win 12 straight to end the season, but man, this is probably one they want to play. They want to do over on this one.
Yeah, this one was rough. Just a lot of stupid plays that if it went just a little differently, you kind of figure that the Steelers might have came away winning this one on the fumbles. So it's really, really unfortunate how those worked out.
One team that would like a mulligan on their entire season is the Jacksonville Jaguars. They've now lost 7 in a row after losing only 7 games total between the postseason and regular season last year. Jalen Ramsey getting a dose of his own medicine after calling Josh Allen trash. Well, Josh Allen ran for 99 yards for the Bills on Sunday, and his Bills beat the Jaguars. The Jaguars in free fall mode right now. They fired their offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett and benched Blake Bortles for Cody Kessler. Wow.
It's just a lot. It's a lot. I agree with a lot of the criticism for firing their offensive coordinator. I don't understand when your team is hurt. You lost 2 tight ends. You lost your entire offensive line. You lost your wide receiver at the beginning of the year. You have trash quarterback, and you're firing the offensive coordinator that beat the Patriots early in the year and somehow was good last year. Like, I don't agree with that. I think he should have around past Blake Bortles being benched because I still think that he was also I want to say that Leonard Fournette wasn't there for 6 games because he was hurt. So, like, what are we supposed to do? I think that he should find it. He should get back on his feet soon. I think he's going to be picked up by another team. I think that firing was unwarranted. I don't think he deserved it at all. So those are my thoughts on the matter. What do you think?
Oh, by the way, Leonard Fournette did get suspended for getting in a fight with the Bills player, so that was another undisciplined action. On to the Browns and Bengals. The Browns come away with a huge win against the Bengals. The Bengals looking just awful right now. And a lot's been made about the Baker Mayfield-Hugh Jackson dynamic. After the game, Hugh Jackson goes to hug Baker Mayfield. Mayfield kind of steps back and kind of does the handshake thing. And then he rips him multiple times at the press conference after the game and yesterday and the day before. And he just clearly doesn't have anything nice to say about Hugh Jackson, saying that he basically criticizing him for going to a rival after being the head coach there. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
You're going to have to help me on this one because I'm not good with college. But didn't Baker Mayfield transfer from a school that was rival of Oklahoma to Oklahoma, like in one season? Didn't Baker Mayfield do that himself?
He transferred from Texas Tech to Oklahoma, which they play every year.
Okay, so they're not exactly rivals.
Not huge rivals, but they still play every year.
All right. Okay. Well, then I take that. I take that back. But I still don't think it's fair. I think that it's where Hugh Jackson was familiar and they offered him the job, and they're paying him more than the Browns were paying him. I don't know if you saw that. I don't know how you're supposed to say no to that when you've done terrible for 2 straight seasons and the team still wants to pay you more than you were as a head coach. Like, I honestly respect Hugh Jackson as a businessman. I think he's a terrible coach, but I mean, as a businessman, he somehow reeled in the money if he's getting paid more. If that report is true, he's really getting paid more. It sucks, but I mean, it's that sometimes. Baker Mayfield wasn't the only one to do rubbing in. Randall got a pen and threw it right at Hugh Jackson to catch it. So they obviously do not like him over in Cleveland now.
I really don't get the people complaining about it. I think it's really kind of short-sighted of them. If, let's just say, for instance, if, because I'm a letter carrier for the Postal Service, let's say I got fired, Austin, and I would then say I love doing this kind of work. What if I went and got a job at UPS or FedEx or something like that? I would be within my rights to do so. I don't. Once you sever ties with a guy, you fire someone, you're openly saying, like, that's okay, like, if you do that. You shouldn't have control over something like that. It's not their life. It's just, I don't know, like, if you get fired from a job, what's to stop you from going to a competitor like that? I think that's kind of ridiculous. and just I don't know. I think it's stupid, and I really think it is kind of hypocritical here, and I really wish that this wasn't blown up so much. And for those who want to make a big deal about an advantage in a competition kind of issue because Hugh Jackson was the head coach, look, it didn't matter. Look at what happened.
Oh, yeah. The Browns had that game under control the whole entire time. I mean, the Bengals made the score look a little closer, but the Browns were absolutely poor team.
Andy Dalton is out for the year. Now Jeff Driscoll is the quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. They claimed former Niners and Houston Texans backup Tom Savage to be their new backup. Patriots at Jets. The Patriots trounced the Jets as we expected they would. Nothing to report here.
Yeah, an ad.
Giants at Eagles. The Giants played a great first half and then realized they were the Giants and started sucking again. The Eagles pull out a last-second win with Jake Elliott for the second straight year over the Giants.
Yeah, really unfortunate. The Giants really just imploded. They had that game under control, just lost it. I mean, makes sense because the Giants are the Giants. But, like, Saquon Barkley going off, and then in the second quarter, like, nah, we're not going to run. And, I mean, I understand, like, I understand wanting to throw that poor secondary like 5 starters being gone, but like if the run was working, just stick with the run. Like they could have easily ran away with this game.
49ers at Buccaneers, another tank bowl. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers come away with the win. I don't have much to say about that.
Maybe just do you remember when the Buccaneers were 3-0? Because Pepperidge Farms remembers.
I was looking back at some of the notes I was taking before the Steelers and Buccaneers game back in Week 3, and after the Week 2 loss to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, I wrote something about, like, get ready for the early 2019 NFL MVP, and that was Ryan Fitzpatrick, and it's like, wow, that was so long ago.
Yeah, things change quick, that's all.
Just like for the Panthers have now lost 3 straight after starting 6-2. That throttling by the Steelers has set them back quite a ways. The Seahawks come away with a big win on the road.
At this point, it's really hard to see Carolina making the playoffs, if I'm being honest with you. I mean, they have a good record right now, but the reason I say this, they still have to play the Saints twice. They have 2 times to play the Saints. They lost to the Saints both times. I'm sorry, not both times. They lost to the Saints 3 times last year. So there is no way with this team, with the Saints being the team they are, they're a much better team, they lose to Carolina. It's hard for me to give Carolina a win this year. So it's hard for me with 2 more losses on their record. I can't see them making the playoffs. I really can't. And that's just the Saints. Like, I don't really know the rest of the record, if I'm being honest with you. I think they play the Bucs next week. But, like, still, it's just, they don't have, if you're going to lose 2 more, it's really looking rough for them. And this game was rough for them, losing last minute to Russell Wilson.
The Lamar Jackson train rolls on. They take care of the Raiders. Enough said.
Yeah, I don't really have much else to say about this one. There wasn't really much going on for me.
Not a whole lot going on with the Cardinals and Chargers either. Chargers winning big. We'll get to see them on Sunday night.
Yeah, it was actually interesting, though. The Cardinals came out and looked like they were going to keep it close, but then the Chargers took off. You definitely saw the differences between the 2 teams once the game went on.
Andrew Luck staked his claim to a potential outside run at an MVP consideration with a fantastic game against the Dolphins, leading them to a comeback win. The Colts, the Texans are still leading that division, but the Colts have made a nice run of late.
Yeah, I think the Colts get to see the Texans one more time, too, so that's going to be interesting. Colts might be making a run of the wild card spot. Speaking of teams getting close, we're getting close to the end of the season. We got to start talking about teams making them playoff runs.
All right, next game was Sunday Night Football. The Packers lose to the Minnesota Vikings and Kirk Cousins. Packers are a bad football team, and Aaron Rodgers is having a bad year by his standards. Oh,
yeah. His completion percentage is way down, and it's almost unwarranted when he has guys like Jimmy Graham and Devontae Adams. And he actually had a running game for once. He hasn't had a running game since Lacey in his first season. It's Aaron Jones was really good out there, and he's been the one carrying the team over. Right now, I think Jones has been carrying them the couple games, not Aaron Rodgers, and that's why they're losing. They need Aaron Rodgers to carry them if they want to get wins. It's just always been like that with the Packers, and it's just showing. It's a bad football team. To probably go into rebuilding mode. I think McCarthy is out for the season if he finishes the season, which is a shame. He's been a pretty solid coach with Aaron Rodgers since the beginning of his career. So,
yeah, I think it is the end of the line for Mike McCarthy as well. Final game, Monday Night Football. Texans come away with a big win at home over the Titans, who have lost 2 straight after beating the Patriots.
I expect the Titans to keep it closer. Titans 10-0 immediately and just blew it. 10-0, and then just, I think it was 20 unanswered points before they put up 7 more. Just, they're so inconsistent. It's hard to judge them.
Yeah, I really don't get them at all. So we went back and did some research and got our overall records this season. I'm 16 games ahead of you, Austin, still. The gap has been narrowed a bit, but I'm still have a bit of a lead right now.
Yeah, this is a bad week for me. This is terrible. All my predictions went wrong.
All right, last thing, Saints at Cowboys. Saints getting 7.5 on the road. Who you got?
I'm going to take the Saints to cover. I still think the Cowboys aren't that good of a football team. I mean, they got to beat up the Skins, which are a pretty beat-up team, and just I'm going to pick the Saints to cover. That's just that. What do you have?
Give me the Saints as well. I was thinking about the Cowboys plus the 7.5, but until I see the Saints put up a dud, which they haven't in a while, I have no reason to pick against them. So give me the Saints to win big on Thursday Night Football. That'll conclude our shortened version of the podcast today. We'll be back later in the week to finish up our recap of the Steelers and Broncos game, plus a preview of the Steelers and Chargers game on Sunday night. Thank you so much for joining us as always. And Austin, thanks again for joining me. Steelers Nation, have a terrific night.
Have a good night.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel Podcast.